we'd lived, at least that day. There have been many prophets throughout history, of course, some self-proclaimed. And, of course, starting with the Ides of March man himself, Caesar Soothsayer. He was warned the Ides of March would be an exceptionally bad day for him. And the Ides came and were nearly gone when Caesar ran into a seer on his way to the theater of Pompeii. And he basically said to the seer, "So the Ides are here and nothing happened. Don't you feel stupid? They have come, but they are not gone." And the seer was right. As soon as he arrived, he was murdered and stabbed 23 times. And of course, again, Joan Quigley. Nancy Reagan sought the advice of her, whom she had met on the Merv Griffin show. Do you think they could, or was it just based on things that were going on at the time? Like, do you believe in Seers? Anyway, Nancy Reagan had met Joan Quigley on the Merv Griffin show several years before. No presidential appearance was made without first consulting Joan Quigley to see if the stars are aligned or not. For instance, for the Reagan-Gorbachev-Washington summit, she cast the charts of both men and determined that 2 p.m. on December 8th was the most prominent moment for them to sign the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. At Nancy's behest, the entire summit was built around that hour. But if you don't believe in them, I'm not sure. I think if there are some, very few people have that ability. I don't think it's as prominent as they make it. Yeah, they have. That Joan Quigley, of course, was a seer to President Reagan and Nancy Reagan. But, of course, that was always hushed up. She was never, seen with them, basically, if you remember. But behind closed doors, yeah, she was their personal astrologist. The Brahan seer. And this was a prophet that has alleged predictions are legendary in Scotland. The seer predicted some pretty bizarre and specific incidents, including, and I quote, "The day will come when the Mackenzies of Fairborn shall lose their entire possessions. Their castle will become uninhabited, and a cow shall give birth to a calf in the uppermost chambers of the tower." And he also predicted that the Bonar Bridge would be swept away under a flock of sheep, and it was washed away in a 1982 flood. The frothy foam current was said to look like sheep. So this guy in Scotland, apparently he was pretty accurate. Unfortunately, one of his visions ended up being his undoing. He predicted that his employer, the Earl of Seaforth, was cheating on his wife with numerous women in Paris. Of course, they didn't want to hear that, so Lady Seaforth had him burned to death in a spiked tar barrel. Apparently, she had never heard the phrase, "don't shoot the messenger," but she did that time. Of course, one of the most famous ones, of course, we're going to get into Nostradamus. And his prophecies pop up on a fairly regular basis even today. And they freak people out when they are able to apply his predictions to the current events. Nostradamus himself would probably object because he didn't see himself as a prophet, and mentioned many times he did not guarantee the results of his prediction. He did get his death right on July 1st, 1566, because he told his secretary, "You will not see me alive at sunrise." And he was right. He was found on the floor next to his bed, dead from edema. That's accumulation of fluid beneath the skin and body cavities. And his predictions are far too numerous to mention, plus a lot of them that have come true. The interpretations have been much debated for years, but I think a lot of it, if you take it, I mean, I don't see how else it could be interpreted. We'll go over some of those after we get through with the Seers. Pythia. Now, she was the priestess who, she was in charge of the Delphic oracle. Collectively, Pythia made more than 500 predictions and statements that leaders would follow to the letter. For example, in the 9th century, Pythia stated that love of money and nothing else will ruin Sparta. As a result, silver was banned and gold money, and Spartans lug around coins made of heavy iron instead. And in 67 AD, she said to Nero, the number 73 marks the hour of your downfall. Apparently not liking this, to his inevitable defeat, Nero had Pythia burned alive. He always thought he would die at the age of 73, but ended up committing suicide at the age of 30 after after a revolt by Galba, who was 73 years old at the time. The number 73 marks the hour of your downfall. So there you go. She was the, she manned the Delphic oracle. Edgar Cayce, he was a renowned seer who made his predictions by lying down and entering a trance-like state. He theorized that the unconscious mind had access to all kinds of information that our conscious mind doesn't. He made more than 20,000 predictions during the period from the early 20th century to his death in 1944. His predictions included things that did happen: the Great Depression, Hitler, things that have not yet happened, the California disappearing into the ocean, and the discovery of Atlantis. The amazing Criswell, who was, that reminded me of something. Kreskin. Amazing Kreskin. Of course, the amazing Criswell. He ran around with Ed Wood and Vampira. There's a movie. The movie Ed Wood suggests Criswell never believed he was a psychic and only made his wild predictions because of the fame that brought him. But at least one source who knew him in real life said Criswell once stated, "I had the gift but lost it when I started taking money for it." His crazy predictions included a ray from outer space that would cause metal to turn to rubber and cause terrible disasters in amusement parks, that by the time the world came to an end, in 1999, of course, we would all have resorted to cannibalism. Well, thank God that didn't come true. There's another oracle besides the Delphic oracle, the Nichung oracle. It's one of a handful still used today. He's the state oracle of Tibet. Perhaps the most famous of the oracle's prediction dates back to 1947. He accurately predicted that Tibet was headed for times of trouble. He also predicted that the Dalai Lama would have to flee Tibet. And in 1959, that's what exactly happened. There's one more I'm going to mention, and then we're going to kind of move on. Wouldn't it, though? Resort to cannibalism. Thank God that didn't happen, though. I mean, seriously, that's really scary. Some of these people, I think they did it. Hang on just a second. Okay, Michelle just let me know she's working in a different unit, so she'll try and stop by. But there was another one, Madame Marie, And she made her living telling fortunes on the Asbury Park Boardwalk for more than 70 years. The strong evidence for her prediction accuracy is that she declared fellow boardwalk busker Bruce Springsteen would become famous. There you go. He returned the favor by immortalizing her in the song 4th of July. Asbury Park, Sandy. He sings, "Did you hear the cops finally busted Madame Marie for telling fortunes better than they do?" Thanks to Bruce, Madame Marie gained somewhat of a celebrity status and told fortunes for Judy Garland, Diane Keaton, Elton John, and Woody Allen. How do I like that? Madame Marie. I'm going to... Do you remember the amazing Kreskin? Do you remember hearing about him? My mom thought the world about this guy. He's a mentalist who became popular in North America television show in the 1970s. Because he was funny too. He was a comedian also. Let's see. Who? The amazing Kreskin. My mom talked about him. He's more well known. He's well known. He had a television show apparently. Let me see here. He predicted Donald Trump would be the 2016 presidential winner and shared his predictions for the rest of the year. He actually made an initial prediction in December 2015 on film, but made a final prediction on paper 3 days prior to the election. He predicted the 9/11 plane crashes in New York. Kreskin says he foresees World War, when that will last so long, no one alive today will see the end of it. But I have to say, that comes from Nostradamus' predictions. And we'll get to that in a few. Of course, Iran building an atomic bomb, people's actions on social media and the likes keeping them from getting jobs, movie theaters going back to hosting double features. He was real popular in the 70s. My mom liked him. He always presented himself as an entertainer, not a psychic, who operates on the basis of suggestion and observation, not paranormal or supernatural. He appeared on The Tonight Show 61 times between 1970 and 1980. He was also featured on Late Night with David Letterman, The Howard Stern Show, and The Late Night with Jimmy Fallon. In 2008, the movie The Great Buck Howard, based on the experience of writer-director Sean McGinley, who worked briefly as his road manager, was released in theaters. Apparently that was about him. Yeah, that's very true. But Nostradamus was the first one to predict that. Now, how long ago was that? 1500s. So I think he would have precedence over this guy. So Kreskin does an average of 364 appearances a year. He recovered from a medical incident that nearly cost him his eyesight. But he's, God, I remember my mom talking about him. Wow. He begins an off-Broadway run this... Yeah, they did. I have to agree with you there, Ike. So, I'm not saying, but the one he said he predicted about the many will not survive. Actually, Nostradamus predicted that one first, so we'll get into that. But gosh, I remember him. My mom talking about him.